Welcome to this continuing series of videos. We continue looking at capital budgeting decisions. My name is Moya Kihuba on behalf of Institute of Finance and Related Studies. In this video, we turn our attention to non-discounted cash flow techniques. What are non-discounted cash flow techniques? Non-discounted cash flow techniques are those techniques that do not consider time value of money. In other words, when we are evaluating projects, we do not compute the present values of our cash flows. We take them as they are. And hence, these methods have got inherent disadvantage of not considering time value of money. There are two major non-discounting cash flow techniques, and one of them is payback period method. The other will be accounting rate of return, but that will be subject to another video. What's payback period? The payback is the period of time it requires for an investment project to recover its initial investment. How many years does it take for us to recover our initial investment? How do we compute payback period? In the event the project generates equal cash flows, the payback period is simply computed as the initial investment, and we divide by sum of annual. We divide that by annual cash flows, and we could take an illustration. Consider a project whose initial cost is shillings 50,000, and it is expected to give us cash flows of 12,000 over the next 7 years. What will be the payback period? The payback period will simply be our initial investment, which is 50,000, and we divide that by annual cash flow, which is 12,500, and we expect our project to have repaid itself back within 4 years. That would be the payback period of that project. And so long as the cash flows are constant, then we can compute our payback period as we have. But in often cases, we've got unequal cash flows. Unequal in the sense that every year we've got different amount of cash flows. And how we get our payback period is simply to add up our cash flows until the period the total of the initial cash outlay is equal to the total cash flows. Let's take an illustration. Suppose we have a project that requires a cash outlay or an initial investment of 20,000 shillings and generate cash inflows of shillings 8,000, shillings 7,000, shillings 4,000, and shillings 3,000 in years 1, 2, 3, and 4 respectively. What is the payback period? The best way to sort this is you use a table. I've got a table with 3 columns. The first one is on the periods, then you have cash flows, and then you have accumulated cash flow. Accumulated cash flow is simply to add. Now, in period 0, our initial investment is 20,000, and that's what I've got there. Then in period 1, 2, 3, and 4, as it had been mentioned, and thereafter we add. In year 0, we still have 20,000 to recover. When we get an inflow of 8,000 in year 1, we are left with 12,000 to recover. When we get 7,000, the amount to recover is 7. We are simply adding up. Year 3, we recover 4,000. We are left with 1,000 to recover. And then finally, in year 4, we get 3,000. And you're able to recover our initial amount, and you end up with a balance. Clearly, Our payback period lies between year 3 and 4 because it is between those two periods that we are able to recover all our total costs. All right, it's in between those two periods that we are able to recover our initial cost of 20,000. But how do we get the exact payback period? What we do, at least by the end of year 3, we still haven't have recovered everything, but in year 4 we know we'll have recovered. So at least we know our payback period is 3 years plus how much more do we have to recover as at the end of that period. You notice we've got 1,000 to recover. How much are we recovering in the next period? It is 3,000. So we divide by that. So our payback period will be 3.33 years. Or we could convert it into years and months by multiplying these values here by 12. All right, those are the number of months, and that will give us 4 months. What are the acceptance rules if you're using payback period? Now, we would accept projects whose payback period is less than that has been set by the management. If the management says the payback period is 2 years, then you only accept those projects whose payback period is less than 2 years. If we have 2 projects and we have to pick on one, it would mean, therefore, we'd have to rank them. And projects with the shortest payback period are ranked first, all right? Whereas those with the highest payback period are ranked last. This method have got certain advantages and certain disadvantages. Some of the advantages would include simplicity. It's a very simple technique to use. It's cost effective. It doesn't require complicated softwares. Its effects are felt in short term. It has risk shield because you see, you prefer those projects to pay back themselves sooner. And of course, with projects paying themselves sooner, it becomes a little bit easier to get liquidity or easier to get cash. However, it has got certain limitations. The first one is that it ignores cash flows after the payback period. And let me demonstrate this before I move to the next. Consider 2 projects. Say, call this project A. Project A has got initial cost of 100, then 95, then 5, 1, 1, 1 in the other 5 years. And if we are to compute the payback period, we notice that this project is able to pay itself back in period 2, because that's when we are able to recover our initial initial cost of 100. Consider project B, whose initial cash outlay is the same, but the cash flow patterns change. We've got 1, 5, 90, 100, and 200. What will be the payback period? We notice that the payback period is somewhere between year 3 and year 4. We'll not compute the exact figure, but I hope you can notice that. Now, if we were to compare these 2 projects, project B, whose payback period is somewhere between year 3 and year 4, and project A, whose payback period is 2 years, then project A would be accepted on account that it has a shorter payback period. But look at what happens with the cash flows after the payback period. This drops to 1. But in this other project, even though we've rejected it, we end up getting more cash flows. So we take project A because it has a shorter payback period, but the cash flows after that are nearly nil. Whereas on the project that we reject, assuming they are mutually exclusive, notice the pattern of the cash flows after the payback period. And this is what we say, we ignore cash flows after the payback period. That's what it basically means here. because we reject a project that has got better promises. Let's go back to our disadvantages. Again, it ignores the patterns of the cash flows. Like for instance, it prefers those cash flows that occur sooner as opposed to those which occurs later. It has some administrative difficulties, and it is inconsistent with the shareholders' wealth maximization goal. What is the shareholders' wealth maximization goal? Shareholders' wealth is maximized by those decisions that have the highest NPV. But you notice here, we are not even considering NPV. I think that's the end of our this video. Please subscribe to Moya Kehuba on YouTube, and thank you. In our next video, we shall look at discounted payback period. One of the advantages of subscribing is that you'll be able to know, you'll be alerted when a new video comes up. Thank you.